Well, here to discuss this, Alice Powell, the communications coordinator with Publish What You Pay, an organization that aims to hold governments to account over their spending, and Ilmi Granoff, a senior research fellow at the UK's leading development policy think tank, the Overseas Development Institute. Both of you, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Starting with you, Alice, yes. First of all, I mean, why have these activists been arrested, and what's the message the government is trying to send?
Well, they were arrested following a press conference yesterday that Ali Idrissa and other activists organised, where he denounced the relationship between Niger and France, and where he called on Areva, the French nuclear company, to respect Niger's sovereign laws. And this has come at the tail of a long campaign where Ali and his colleagues have really been fighting for Niger to get a fair deal for his resources. Areva and Niger recently signed a contract, and yesterday Ali and his colleagues wanted to debate that contract and debate the relationship between Niger and France. Ali was actually arrested shortly after the interview itself yesterday and later released. He was again arrested this morning at 4 in the morning, along with other members of civil society. Now, Ali and the rest of Rotab, his organisation, had called on Nigerian citizens to wear a yellow kerchief, which represents yellow cake, which is what they referring to uranium, as a symbol of saying uranium belongs to us and we want a fair deal for it.
At the heart of this, of course, is money, isn't it? I mean, they want to know whether or not the agreements
yes.
between the French company and the Nigerian
yes.
authorities are above board. Now, just tell us, Ilmi, I mean, you're a keen sort of, follower of these developments. I mean, tell us about these issues. Is France really the only country involved in Niger, or is there something more going on?
No, well, I would say one thing is that it's about money, but it's really also about accountability. And I think the issue is that yes, Niger is trying to negotiate a better deal. The Nigerian government is trying to negotiate a better deal for the Nigerian government. And then the question is, what's then the deal for the Niger citizens?
Yes, the people.
And that's a separate question. And part of creating that link is making sure that those revenues are public and accountable to the people. Natural resources have this strange history where countries that have them often seem to have the worst growth records, despite their value. It is a two-edged sword. There are examples where they have brought about prosperity. And part of that question is the degree to which the government stays accountable to its people. So while it is important that the Niger government works for a better deal, there is the fact that 70% of Niger's population lives on less than $1 a day. And you have to wonder, how does that change from getting more of the revenues from Areva? So I think that's part of the picture.
So, Alice, do you think that these activists suspect foul play?
I think it's not so much foul play as the idea of, even if the parties agreed to it, having a fair deal. And what they've been campaigning for months is that Areva respect the 2006 mining code that Niger implemented. Now, for months, it didn't look like this would be the case, because Areva had said that they had a 75-year stabilization clause, which isn't going to get Niger a fair deal at all. So, since the contract's been signed, ostensibly the mining code has been applied. But until the contract is published, it's very difficult to know whether the deal is fair.
Yes, I understand what you mean. I mean, we know, for example, that negotiations leading up to that agreement with France were extremely fractious from what we've read. But the Nigerian government insists it got the best deal, including, and I'm reading here, increased investment in the uranium sector, as well as a promise that Nigerians will be promoted to senior management positions. I mean, Ilmi, what more do you need to know?
Well, this is exactly the issue. So if you take a bigger picture, you say, where has this worked? It's not just about getting revenue to stay in the country. The fact is, as I've said, there's an abysmal record of countries, especially in Africa, with tremendous natural resource wealth that have not translated that into sustainable human development. And how those resources get used are really at the heart of it. The best example we have on the continent is Botswana's Pula Fund, and Botswana's, which used revenues to stabilize macroeconomic conditions as a sort of smoothing fund, and to use to create a sovereign wealth fund that could be used for development. So part of the issue is also, will Niger lock up those resources? Nigerians are just like any other humans, and Nigerian politicians are just like any other politicians. If you have a massive stream of new revenue, it's very tempting to use for politically expedient interests at the moment and not to use it for long-term development objectives. And there are methods to change that. There are examples where that's been done. Ghana, Nigeria are examples of, and Angola are countries that have recently set up funds in the last couple of years. And part of this is about accountability and making sure that those resources are sustainably used over time for development.
Now, the other issue, Alice, is about the royalty rate.
Yes.
Because the French nuclear company, well, supposedly, the agreement was to increase the rate from 5 to 12%. What's the government saying about that?
I think the government is saying that that's a victory for the government.
So was it actually increased?
Well, we're going to know more details in the contract itself, because you can increase the royalty rates from 5 to 12%. But you can also say that this will only start to take effect in 2018. You can also give other exemptions. So it's only when you see the whole package.
So it's critical that that contract is made
absolutely
public.
Critical. And according to Niger's 2010 constitution, and this was a great victory at the time, all contracts have to be published on natural resources according to the constitution.
So basically the government is not doing what the constitution binds it to do, as
at
it were.
this stage, no.
Now, Ilmi, do you think Niger, the bigger picture, do you think Niger needs France more than France needs Niger? Because, of course, I mean, beyond the economic impact of this French company, I mean, France is deploying troops to Niger to help defend the country against insurgents. Do you think those are the issues that are going to dominate Hollande's visit, rather than talk about what a few ragtag sort of activists are talking about?
One thing we don't know is actually the degree to which France relies on Niger for uranium imports. So I can't really speak to that because we don't know the details of that, and that would be an important part of answering that question. But what I can say is that as long as Niger relies on an extractive economy for its growth over time, it will rely on France for its own development and economic growth. And really the long-term question is, can it use the revenue to transform its economy, to diversify? That's actually a very hard thing to do. But the question is, are they even focused on that issue? And
that is that issue that is at the heart of Africa, isn't it, overall, broadly speaking? Because it's about this being focused on resources. And somebody extracting your resources and paying you for it. I mean, that's a curse in some ways, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. And if the revenues are then not managed effectively, and if they're not properly invested, then that money is just lost. And it doesn't go towards the development of citizens, and citizens are not only not benefiting, but they're seeing all the negative impacts of extraction.
Alice Powell and Ilmi Granoff, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.